think people think when we criticize religion, we're criticizing people who are religious, which couldn't be further from the truth, because we think they're victims too.
Absolutely. I mean, the word Islamophobia is all about that. People think that if you criticize Islam, you're criticizing Muslims. Quite the contrary, they're the primary victims of Islam.
Well,
I think the really sick-making thing is people who think because they're agnostic and we can't know for sure, therefore the likelihood is 50-50.
Yeah,
very different. I mean, I'm agnostic, but I believe that the likelihood is about 1% or less.
That's not really agnostic, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yes, if we accept that we don't know, if it's a default, we don't know, no one's come back from heaven, no one's proved it. You can't prove the non-existence of something, and why would you? The periodic table of non-existent things is infinite, you know? It's like... so if we accept that, that's a knowledge, that's a category of knowledge. But if you just say, what do you believe? You have to step up to the plate. You have to say what you believe. And if you don't believe in any God, right, you're an atheist. That's the other misconception. People think that atheism is denying the existence of God, right? It's not. It's just not accepting the claim that there is a God. You know.
But if there were 3 doors, which says God exists, God doesn't exist, I don't know.
That doesn't make sense.
There's 3 doors. It says God exists. It doesn't exist, I don't know.
But you not knowing is irrelevant to where there is or isn't a God. Again, you've done a sleight of hand there on a category mistake, because 1 is knowledge and 2 are beliefs, right?
I haven't even finished my question.
No, what? No, there's always... I'm saying 3 is always there. If you had to choose one...
Yeah.
I believe there's a God. I don't believe there's a God. I don't know is irrelevant then, isn't it?
The other question, of course, I would have is, and this is a common sense question, is why did God choose Arabic or Aramaic or Greek? I mean, doesn't he speak English? Or the Americans always think he does, which is why they invented the Mormon religion. So the question I want to ask is, what makes sense is to ask not the details of the Quran, which I don't want to dwell on, because it's just one of 1,000 different religions, all of which make the same claims, and all of which, if you look at them a priori, are equally ridiculous from a priori common sense notion. For example, and I got this from my late friend Christopher Hitchens, is it sensible to assume that humans evolved in their present form somewhere between 250,000 to 1 million years ago? So you have a God who creates a universe and has 4.5 billion years of life evolving, and then Homo sapiens evolve and live in incredibly awful conditions and for 250,000 years, and suddenly, in the middle of the desert, in a cave where no one can see it, he takes some poor schmo and says, I'm going to tell you the truth. And not only that, I'm going to allow you to save humanity. And in fact, if people don't believe you, they're going to go to hell for eternity. And we can talk in great length, in great sadomasochistic length about the torture they're going to have, and we can all enjoy it. Now, what about all those poor 250,000 years of people, of real people who were struggling to exist and survive, those poor people who were existing before that God decided to give his revelation to Muhammad? Why that? Why would a sensible God wait that long? And of course, the interesting question you have to ask is, why are the revelations always done when no one can see them? If you're asking a court of law, you'd say, well, you know what? It just doesn't make sense. Why don't once it doesn't call down from the sky so everyone can hear them? Why is it always given to people in private who then claim they've had a revelation? Now, why should I believe Muhammad's revelations any more than anyone else's? In fact, there's a young woman in the United States, in my country, who, as you know, had a revelation. You may know this. She had a revelation. God told her to drown her 4 children in a bathtub. And she did. Because God told her. She heard it. She heard it. She had a revelation. It was real. She heard words of incredible harmony and beauty that she'd never experienced before in her life, and she drowned her 4 children. Okay, now she's in a mental hospital for good reason.
In the greater scheme of things, there are probably worse things than people believing in all the different gods. It doesn't affect me because I'm free and liberated and safe. But yeah, you can still be annoyed. It's ignorance that annoys me more than anything. Whatever it is, it's not. I don't want to keep going after religion because that's only one form of this belligerent, willful. And it's not even that. It's you can't sort of help what you believe in. Most people aren't going around thinking this will annoy people or I'm trying to oppress people's rights. They just think, I believe in God because that's how my brain worked when I was little, and now I think, yeah, there's probably a God. And most religious people aren't crazy. It's something else. Again, it's something, you know. We worry about the people who believe the bad bits in their holy book as well as the good bits. Most nice people who believe in God, they can tell the difference. They know the nice bits. They cherry pick and they know the nice bits from the bad bits. They don't do the bad bits. And my point is, if you know the bad bits from the good bits, you don't need the holy book. You know, you're already a moral person.
A quick word from this video sponsor. In today's day and age, misinformation and news bias have become pervasive issues, and many people are being fed a single narrative where biased reporting often is clouding the truth. If you want to emancipate yourself from this, you should check out Ground News. Ground News is the world's first news comparison platform designed to combat misinformation and bias in media consumption. It offers users the ability to compare how different news outlets are covering the same story, providing a thorough overview of various perspectives on any given story. It also grants users the ability to see which news stories are being underreported by one side of the political spectrum, as well as providing you with a personalized dashboard with tools to track your own reading habits that will help you avoid echo chambers, as well as so many other features. And all the while you are obviously going to be fully informed about current events, both locally and internationally, from politics to finance to sports, culture, the environment, you name it. If you want to consume news without there being an underlying interest in telling you what to think, but rather just giving you the full story, you should visit Ground News today by clicking the link in the description, which automatically grants you a 15% discount on all subscriptions.
For not believing, you're tortured for infinity. The tortures are actually described in the Quran, and you know it as well as I do. And the point is, if you just ask yourself common sense, if you were a divine being, say you had an ant colony that you made in your house, would you be offended if those ants didn't pay homage to you well, let's start with 50 times a day before Muhammad cut it down to 30 and then 5. Would you be offended if those ants didn't pay homage to you 5 times a day? And if they didn't look up to you or didn't recognize your existence, would you destroy them? No, I mean, it just seems so petty. So why should we believe in a hateful, unmerciful, petty, sadomasochistic, homophobic, sexist God? It's just irrational. It's not sensible. There's nothing. And the point is, and I don't want to single out Islam here. And I know I'm offending some people, but the same is true for the God of Moses. Okay? If you really believe that the scriptures were literally true, the morals in that book are reprehensible. So arguing that something doesn't make sense to you is based on the fact that the assumption that you know what's sensible in advance. But we don't know what's sensible in advance until we explore the world around us. Our common sense derived from the fact that we evolved on the savannah in Africa to avoid lions, not to understand quantum mechanics, for example. As I've often said, common sense, our deductions might suggest that you cannot be in 2 places at once. That is crazy. But of course, an electron not only can be, but it is. It doesn't make sense because we didn't evolve to know about it. We've learned about it. We force our idea of common sense to change. It's called learning. Some people would rather read an ancient book than learn. And this has been a very good evidence of that. For example, to say something is inconceivable just means you can't conceive it. But the great thing about the universe, and the reason that I do science, is that the universe has a much greater imagination than we do. In fact, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And that's what's wonderful about the universe. Things that are inconceivable happen all the time. And what that does is that expands our mind. And expanding our minds to conform to the evidence of reality is common sense. And that's what, when you call atheism, that's what that is. That's just saying, I'm going to accept the evidence of reality, and if something seems like it contradicts the evidence of reality or is irrational, I should question it.